Good morning, everyone. My name is Iridescent. I use she, they pronouns. I am the Secretary of Equality Kansas, as well as the co-chair for Douglas County. This morning, I wanted to share with you that SB 233 did leave conference committee and will be heard eventually in the House. Today, I sent an email to every single legislator in the legislature, and I wanted to share that with you. If any of you have questions about how to write a good email to a legislator, how to interact with call to action forms, how to get involved, please let me know. I'm happy to help. Good morning, everyone. I hope this email finds you well. I hope you take the time to read through the entirety of my email and take it to heart, because lives depend on it. I've reached out and have sent emails to you all before, and I appreciate those who have responded to me. Kids' ability to live and be themselves, whether they're cisgender or transgender, is paramount for their well-being and their development. This shouldn't be a political issue. I've been told by some in the legislature that my side doesn't support 14-year-olds driving from their farm to school. I personally could care less about that issue. I grew up driving trucks on my uncle's farm all the time. I was taught how to do it safely. Occasionally, it would have me drive the combine. So what does this issue have to do with trans kids or transgender rights in general? And that is what this bill is aiming and continuing to set up. Nothing. This is engaging in distraction techniques and is using red herring fallacies. My side, I've been told that is justification to take away the medically necessary care from trans kids. Maybe that separates the author of that message from the impact of their actions, or gives them justification, because it is now an us versus them situation. Trans people just want to live in peace. We don't want government overreach. We simply want to live. We simply want to share the same liberties and rights as other citizens in Kansas and the United States. The my side argument separates humanity from trans people. It's intentional. It turns us into a logical or moral debate, and it fuels a fire that gets harder to stop once it has been started. Our pleas for this to stop are turned to arguments saying we're fear-mongering, that we're trying to pressure kids into being someone they are not. We just want trans kids to grow up to be adults. Whether or not they decide they're trans when they're an adult is totally up to them. We just want them to be able to live. It takes our own experiences of knowing what having gender dysphoria is like, growing up in a red state, and praying that we make it to adulthood without being hurt, and it uses that against us. We become demonized in a state where our entire lives have been centered. Many of us cannot afford to move, whether that's financially or because of everything and everyone that we know are here. A justification that is used to push legislation like this is, well, you can just leave. That's simply not the case. Trust me, I've tried. But I shouldn't have to leave. Neither should my friends, and neither should families of trans kids. I've written about my experiences since I came out. I haven't had the luxury of getting to be myself without having to fight for my rights. Shortly after coming out, I found myself needing to get involved. I saw what was happening and it scared me. I wasn't given the chance to transition quietly. My transition became very public very quickly. Within the first 8 months of coming out, I was doxxed, stalked, and someone tried to swap me. And my face was plastered in the Daily Mail with a pre-transition photo of me that was purposely used. That is the reality for us when we, medical experts, trans kids themselves, parents of trans kids, and hundreds of Kansans submit testimony in opposition to SB 233, our voices get stifled. SB 233 comes from model legislation. This was not an original idea that was written by Rep. Bryce. This legislation comes from literal hate groups, people who find the folks at Westboro Baptist Church to be courteous, kind, and friendly people. We're facing a pivotal moment in our country and in the state of Kansas. Growing up, I read books about the Holocaust, a moment many of us probably remember. Shock, fear, anguish, a surprise that human beings could treat others with such depravity, cruelty, and hate. Many of us ask ourselves, what would have I done then? Many of us believe that we would have stood up to the fascists, to the Nazis. No one wants to be seen as a sympathizer with Nazis or fascists. They're the bad guys. The Nazis started with queer and trans people. And I shared a resource to them with that. And I shared that with them last year. The answer to those questions, would I have stood up to Nazis? What would have I done then? You're answering that right now with how you vote, with whether or not you choose to target the trans community. In the legislature, you get many things asked of you. You get many things told to you for what you should do or what you need to do to avoid punishment, to keep positions on a committee, or to give your legislation a chance. You're coerced and bullied. You are threatened politically. And in order to keep yourself, your career, or your legislation safe, you're asked to throw others under the bus or into the crosshairs of tyrannical leaders or hate groups. The Nazis did that too. Kansas is full of good, decent people. And I believe that many of you are good, decent people who want to do the best for your family and for your communities. I'm an Eagle Scout. That is something that is incredibly important to me, and I take that responsibility seriously. I was taught to stand up for what is right, to do what is hard, to do what may not be popular with my peers, to be mentally awake and morally straight, to do what is right and to do what is kind, to open my heart to understanding others. I grew up in the LCMS Lutheran Church. I'm confirmed. A lot of what the church taught me is the same as what I learned in scouting as well. You are facing a challenge where you're given two options: to give in to what bullies and fascist groups want, or to stand by trans kids and their families. You have a chance to make a statement that Kansas is the free state, a chance to protect trans kids, a chance to prevent a rise in youth suicides across the state. Our state has a history of bleeding. Let's stop the knife before it does more harm. For the safety of trans kids, to say no to hate, to give yourself time to learn about trans people. We don't expect you to know everything about us. It's okay if you don't. This is a chance to be human and to treat others as people, to do what is right and to do what is kind, and to give kids a chance to grow up, to shape themselves for who they want to be on their own terms. A chance to put this knife down before more kids get hurt. I then shared an article regarding Next Benedict, Brianna Gay, and other trans youth that have faced violence, bullying, and stabbings. For Next, for Brianna, for other countless trans youth facing violence in the midst of all this anti-trans rhetoric, misinformation, and legislation. You can stop the bleeding from happening. I urge you to vote no on SB 233 and to vote to sustain and override veto if we reach that point. If you haven't, please take time to read the 3 articles that I sent. Choose love, not hate. Choose compassion and kindness. Choose a willingness to learn, and choose to stand up to those shoving you into this cycle of violence. I am here to help you process, to understand, to hold a conversation. Please reach out to me. We can connect together. I am happy to be a resource. Before Kansas youth bleed more, drop the knife. Ad Astra per Spera.